Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
Hello there, welcome back.
So we're going to talk about two topics here. Ian and the Divine Mother.
Yes, and they kind of go together.
They do. Seeing the underlying interconnectedness of all things as we're taking a look at Ian. And as always, guys, please do subscribe to both channels, Evolutionary Energy Arts and EEARTS. So, as we see, Ian is expected to be a major hurricane in the eastern Gulf of Mexico during the middle of the week. Regardless of its track, there's definitely a risk of life-threatening storm surge, hurricane force winds, and heavy rainfall along the west coast panhandle of Florida by midweek. First, send out your prayers and positive intentions for the people of the Cayman Islands, which are under this, Cuba. This is a big one. We've started off the year kind of slow, but we see now, we had Fiona pound Canada like it hasn't been pounded before by a hurricane. And now you have Ian, which, I remember when I was living in Florida, reading articles about conjecture of what would happen if you had a Category 5 hit Tampa. Holy cow, right? Let's put out our intention that Ian weakens. And this is what the guides have been sending Cindy as far as the message. Tell everybody to see this weaken.
Well, this energy needs to express itself, but it's really important that we try to stabilize it in our minds, make it smaller, and let this energy go, but without bringing harm to life. But there is a purpose for expression, and we have to honor that when it comes to our earth.
We've talked a lot about the earth changes and then the geoengineering, the weather modification, weather control, the reality of all these technologies that do exist in this world. And at some time, as Tool has written in its famous song, Mom's Gonna Wash It All Away. And how does the remnants of this dark era, this dark age, disappear from our reality and our collective? It's going to be the mother doing that. She is going to wash all the remnants of this system away at some point in time. What we've been seeing so far is some natural earth changes, some intensification of natural events on the planet with an awful lot of augmentation, because obviously we know it's pretty obvious. You can fool some of the people some of the time. You're not going to fool all the people all the time. Even for lack of a better word, even the densest folks out there are going to get it at some point in time. It is an awakening that's happening. But at some point in time, the earth herself, Gaia, what was Tiamat, the divine goddess aspect of consciousness that is this planet, is going to have enough. This system has been a nasty virus. It's been a cancer. It is a cancer. The leaders of this planet are a cancer upon this planet. And they will be eradicated. The white blood cells will be utilized to go and attack these viruses that we find plaguing us, plaguing our consciousness, taking away what would be a beautiful reality where we would be in harmony with nature and all around. We would be in harmony with each other. Yeah, of course, you're always going to have arguments. You're always going to have disagreements on the way things should be done. But when you constantly have people that are there egging on a fight, where the fight might have been dissuaded, tensions could have been eased in a nice civil way, when you get those instigators that are always nudging you, look what he's doing, look what she's doing now, always getting us to fight each other is their number one priority.
Mm-hmm. And they really have to push that too, because if they lost that one thing where we are fighting against each other, if we were to stop and understand how to heal our inner core, we would be a huge force to reckon with. So they have to keep at it. They have to keep nudging, jabbing that energy and make sure that we don't figure things out.
Absolutely. So Ian rapidly strengthens into a hurricane, significant wind, storm surge impacts expected in Cuba. As you can see, the positioning here is probably going to go over Cuba as a Category 3. Of course, again, with technology, anything could happen at any time. Now, it's supposed to go up to a Category 4 and then fall back as it approaches Florida to either a 3 or a 2 upon impact. But again, all this could change. It could change because of technology. It could change because of you and us.
A lot. We have to remember that too.
Yeah. I mean, we are always made to think that we are powerless, but we're not. We're not powerless. And there's a lot of power in the higher realms that's just waiting there to help us, but we have to ask. And we're made afraid to approach the beings that reside on the higher densities in any way, shape, or form but that which the controllers have given us. Now, of course, the controllers wouldn't give us ways to approach the higher beings when the controllers are lower density beings. Quite the opposite. This is part of this distortion that we have on Earth, and in EEARTS we go a little bit deeper into that. And it feels good to go a little bit deeper and explain what's going on. Ian is expected to produce heavy rainfall, flash flooding, mudslides in areas of higher terrain, particularly over Jamaica and Cuba. Again, we should pray for Jamaica too. So many people that are living in these tropical paradises, but these paradises can become very, very treacherous with storm systems like this. It is one of the dangers of living in an area like this, and this is one of the reasons why Cindy won't let me drag her to an area like this. Not that we could afford to, but still.
Yeah, I know, but still.
And so, again, West Central Florida in particular, once it gets out, be on the alert. As you can see, it looks like this is going to come over and curve. And so, again, anywhere from down in Naples all the way on up through the Panhandle, you should be on the lookout. There is a military base that was pummeled, that Air Force base that was pummeled by Hurricane Michael, that went from tropical storm. I gotta say, it seemed to be like about here as tropical storm. By the time it hit here, it was Category 5, and they listed as a 4. And then like a year later, that was actually probably a 5. And our buddy Thor and a couple other people that do emergency response in these situations said it looked like it was Hiroshima and Nagasaki because of that intensity. It just wiped out everything in its path. And that's what some technology can do. And of course, what Mother could do is much bigger, but it's not her necessarily doing all this at this particular point in time yet. And you can sense when you're in tune with the Mother energy, you'll know when it's her and when it's technology. So currently a Cat 1, as you see as it approaches, Cat 2, Cat 3, as it goes over Cuba, Cat 4, and then they're saying Cat 3. So again, if it steers inwards a little bit sooner, perhaps that would be one of the worst scenarios, because it's looking like it's going to land north of Tampa, more towards, I guess you would say, the armpit over here, so to speak, and then go on up through Georgia and the Carolinas. Definitely one to use your intention on. You can see the spaghetti models are pretty consolidated there. As you see, numerous ones are pointing towards a very, very close impact to Tampa, some a little bit farther out. And this has led to panic buying sweeping Florida as supermarket shelves strip bare of water, toilet paper, canned goods ahead of this monster storm and 130-mile-an-hour winds. So, we're going to have to see as it goes over Cuba. It should usually weaken when it goes over land, but again, it is expected to intensify once it makes it back out over the water. Obviously, a state of emergency in effect. All this is always just a good reason to be prepared in the first place. And, if you're in Florida, Florida gets hit by more hurricanes than any other state. So you just have to be aware of this.
I would imagine that it just sort of becomes a way of life. People just get it. They know what they need to do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So please do use your intentions. And here we see demonstrators in California line the Golden Gate Bridge in solidarity with the ongoing protests in Iran over the death of 22-year-old Mansa Amini. This is a sad occurrence, but we had told you before that the guides were coming through and saying that there's an energy wave that's hitting the planet, and this wave is going to bring about the Durga energy. Some of you understand Durga energy, and for those that don't, we're going to kind of give it a recap. And we listened to a particular politician today that was, it's a perfect expression of Durga energy, and we're going to play that for you. So over here in Iran, we see there's ongoing arrests as you have plainclothes officers trying to arrest people, but you know what? They are outnumbered. And when you push people to the brink, and this is happening on a global scale. People are being pushed to the brink on a global scale. And people are starting to realize things on a global scale. Things that are going to most definitely rile up that Durga energy. As you see here, the picture, it's a madhouse and a mess in Iran. And will this end up with the tumbling over of the regime? Perhaps. I saw one tweet where it was saying that, the leader there, it's amazing how you can call these leaders holy when they're so unholy, like calling some of the popes, calling any of the popes when you get down to it holy. That's just nauseating and wrong.
Very, very wrong, but that's what they do. And this is the landscape that they like to try to lay out in front of us and say, see, this is normal.
Exactly. So we'll see if that does happen. And this is a representation of Durga. And of course can cause a lot of confusion if you're not familiar with Hinduism at all. As what's going on here, you see this woman with 8 arms and all sorts of weapons and things, and a lion at her beck and call, sometimes a lion, sometimes a tiger. And who is this guy? Well, this guy is a demon, an asura. And, the legend goes that basically the Durga came about by the union of all of the quote-unquote gods coming together because there was a demonic force that could not be conquered. So it took the totality of all the gods working together through the divine feminine to wipe out this demonic energy. And Cindy was basically doing like a remote viewing of the energies of the Durga and also of this particular demonic being, which we'll get to after we take a look at today. And this is the new Prime Minister of Italy. Just feel her energy. Feel her energy.
Potrei farne tante altre di queste domande. A monte c'è quella che ci facciamo oggi: perché la famiglia è un nemico? Perché la famiglia fa così paura? C'è una risposta unica per tutte queste domande. Perché ci definisce, perché è la nostra identità. Perché tutto quello che ci definisce in questo tempo è un nemico, per chi vorrebbe che non avessimo più un'identità e che fossimo solamente schiavi, consumatori perfetti. E allora è sotto attacco l'identità nazionale, è sotto attacco l'identità religiosa, è sotto attacco l'identità di genere, è sotto attacco l'identità familiare. Non devo potermi definire italiana, cristiana, donna, madre, no. Io devo essere cittadino X, genere X, genitore 1, genitore 2, devo essere un numero. Perché quando sarò solamente un numero, quando non avrò più un'identità, quando non avrò più radici, allora sarò lo schiavo perfetto in balia della grande speculazione finanziaria, il consumatore perfetto. E questa è la ragione per la quale Questa è la ragione per la quale oggi noi facciamo tanta paura. Questa è la ragione per la quale oggi questo appuntamento fa tanta paura. Perché noi non vogliamo essere dei numeri, noi siamo qui per dire che noi non siamo dei numeri, noi difenderemo il valore della persona umana, di ogni singola persona umana, perché ognuno di noi ha un codice genetico unico e irripetibile. E questo, piaccia o no, ha del sacro. Lo difenderemo, difenderemo Dio, la patria e la famiglia, che fanno tanto schifo a qualcuno. Lo faremo per difendere la nostra libertà, perché noi non saremo mai schiavi e semplici consumatori in balia della speculazione finanziaria. Ecco la nostra missione, ecco perché oggi sono venuta qui. Scriveva Chesterton ormai più di un secolo fa, vediamo se ve lo trovo: fuochi verranno attizzati per dimostrare che 2 più 2 fa 4. Spade verranno sguainate per dimostrare che le foglie sono verdi in estate. Quel tempo è arrivato, signori. Siamo pronti. Grazie.
No, this is that power that we're talking about, because you can feel her underlying energy. You know, I mean, you can look at a lot of things that she says, and I'm sure other speeches that she has done, and I can't say I agree with everything that she says or does, but I can tell you that this is that type of energetic force that we need to get this ship moving in the right direction. It's her underlying certainty that we need, and that's the energy that I'm talking about when it comes to Durga. She's been touched with that energy. Well, we have to all remember, we're not going to all agree on everything all of the time, but I'm just pointing out the energy that we need to turn things around, and she's got it. She has this understanding of what's really important and what's not important. She has that ability to split these things and really be heard, and have people hear her, vice versa. I mean, beautiful soul here, I feel.
Very powerful. And again, now, I'm somebody that's listened to many speeches by Hitler and Mussolini and Churchill and Roosevelt and et cetera, et cetera. The energy that's there is powerful, and it's angered, and it's backs to the wall energy, which can become very dangerous. And again, we can see how people can become so riled up that it becomes a witch hunt. It's really important that the energy remains focused and not allowed to spread in a negative way. It needs to have a laser focus, because there can be those that can take this energy. Again, it's going to be who surrounds her too, because the darkness that's on this planet, it worms its way even into the good constantly in these dark ages. It'll take things and twist things. When we look to Buddhism, for instance, which is a system, a philosophical system of nonviolence, ahimsa is a practice, a principle, which means, harm to none. Same principle can be found in other traditions as well, like Jainism. But when we look to, say, Buddhism, and then we see there's different branches, again, egos get in the way of even the best teachers sometimes. So we just have to be always a little cautious, always be discerning. And yes, absolutely, this Durga energy is coming. This is what Nostradamus saw when he wrote to his son Caesar, and he said, there's going to be these 3 wars. He said there's going to be 3 antichrists. And, we've seen 2 of these situations, and 2 of these antichrist type figures, and, Hister being one of them. And he did say that when that 3rd grand conflagration, that 3rd World War happens, it will be at a time when many nations are in revolution. There's a revolution going on around the globe at the same time that the controllers start a 3rd World War. Well, we could see that kindling right now. It's clear as day. It's just so obvious. Now, they will always try to infiltrate any true movement, and this is why we have had nothing but politicians that are bought and paid for. Because you could take a good person and, you could bribe them in some way, shape, or form, or threaten them. And eventually, you're probably going to get to most people. Some people you will not be able to get to because they'll have a picture of that bigger picture in their mind and in their heart, and they're willing to even walk off a cliff for humanity. And then that's when we see these people all of a sudden leave the world because somebody's used to assassinate them and they're gone. So again, the true lights, the darkness always finds a way to distort or snuff. But what's starting now is something that will not be stopped. And it won't be stopped until the entirety of the system is gone. But we are in for a period of incredible energies. And I can't stress that the most important thing in these times, if I said it that way, what do you think is the most important thing in these times? What do you think? You might say, well, food, water, maybe even a way to defend yourself, banding together with neighbors, all great ideals. But I think, again, rooting ourselves in that spiritual practice, keeping our vibes high, having a way to bring ourselves out and away from all the muck and the mire, because the muck and the mire is going to be surrounding us on this planet. And the dark forces are going to take the best of intentions and try to pull us down. So we must resist that. She calls it as it is, slaves. Slaves and simple consumers at the mercy of financial speculators. That's actually going light on what the reality is. That really is. Now, that's something that I think the vast majority of the planet can agree with, that there is a class of beings here on this planet that are just basically utilizing everything in the globe, all the energies of the people, the resources of the globe for themselves, because they are so egocentric, they are so driven by greed and power, and they view everybody else as just being there to serve them. They want everybody to eat insects while they dine on the best foods that we've ever dined on. And that's true, but that's only the tip of the iceberg.
And we've gotten to a point now where we make them extremely uncomfortable. That thing that makes us comfortable really makes them very uncomfortable, and they have to try to tease it out. They need to try to confuse it. They need to attempt to fracture us in more ways, because the more they can fracture us, well, the harder it's going to be for us to pull together. Plus, they'll have more stuff to sell. And it's awful to think that there's beings like that on this planet, but there are, and they're here. And now we're being called to pull ourselves together and heal and become more of a one concentrated effort to disallow this energy from getting into places where it just simply doesn't belong.
Absolutely. So, this is definitely a person to watch, and, we pray for her that she be guided from above, guided from the heart, and also protected, as well as obviously there's a bullseye that's going to be plastered all over her in these times. Anytime you call out the darkness for what it is, the bullseye will go on you. And again, so many people are playing roles here. One of the things that I want to get across again, many people that have studied mythology might say, and I've seen it said many times, why do the gods in the mythologies have so many flaws? Why are they not perfect? Why do they exhibit ego, jealousy, greed, all these different things, lust? There's so many interesting, so many of these myths where Zeus, for instance, fathered people all over the place, constantly. Why are they so imperfect? Well, that's kind of the nature of things when you get down to it. Do you even think, like at the highest levels, that these beings, and many of those gods are, by the way, really the ones that are in the shadows as part of the control team, And again, when we say gods, we're really talking about extraterrestrial, interdimensional beings of all sorts. Of all sorts. And you can't categorize them all in the same, you can't put them into the same camp, because again, there's all different types of beings. Some beings that reside on the lower fourth density, mid fourth density, upper fourth density, lower fifth density, mid fifth density, going up to the sixth density and even beyond. As we've shared with you, the Egyptian deity known as Thoth is a very high density, and Cindy had seen that being could access levels beyond seventh density.
Well, he has a deep understanding of the densities, so he can go and do things in an alchemical way that allows him to reach very high and very low if he wants to, because he's able to stand back and view that in a way that most entities cannot. The information that he carries is very, very good for those who are really wanting to evolve further and really expand themselves, expand their DNA.
Absolutely. So our whole vision has been clouded and distorted, and they've done it to such a degree that they feel it's impenetrable, that they feel there's no way simple human minds can figure out the bigger picture. But we are, and we have, and many people have. And this is blatantly obvious right now. So she is the perfect example of that Durga energy. Perfect example of poking a bear, and maybe that bear is going to leave you alone. It's just going to look at you and say, one swipe of my paw, and the head comes off. But when you attack the bear's children, when you attack that mama bear's cubs, that's a totally different thing. And this is what is part of what's going on now. By the way, India marks the beginning of a 9-day Navratri festival to worship the goddess Durga. And again, it's something that is actually literally programmed in humans in some ways. Scientists have even noted that there's this urge that's programmed in humans to worship. Now, again, our second chromosome's been fused. They have discovered a God gene that some have talked about turning off, and that is a gene that enables us to feel that we're part of something much bigger. And again, they want to, as she was talking about, they want us to be perfect little consumer slaves, consumer serf slave robots with numbers. And, X and Y chromosomes are even getting to be obfuscated, so to speak, if you know what I mean. Everything is becoming so distorted from the natural order. They hate the natural order of things. Isn't that obvious? That they hate the natural order of things. And yet the soul incarnates many, many times, and not always as a male and not always as a female. And in fact, there should be balanced energies is something we should strive for. If you have men that are overly testosterone driven, you end up with nothing but war. And again, we could also go vice versa, but this has been a patriarchal society that we found ourselves in for a purpose. The whole divine feminine has been put under the heel. It's been swept away. Why? Because the system is one in which it rapes, pillage, and robs the entire planet of its natural resources. It has no respect for life. The goddess energy, the divine feminine energy, is the one that gives birth to life. And if you want to, you could conceive it of a Shiva Shakti manner. And again, a lot of these words have dual meanings, and a lot of these beings are really multifaceted in so many ways. When we're talking about Shakti, that's the divine feminine power that gives birth to all the material realms, not just 3D or 4D, but even beyond that, because they are still a material realm, just of a higher vibrational frequency and of a finer material. But if we are in fifth density, and I'm looking at Cindy, we might perceive each other as being perfectly solid with both of us in fifth density.
Why not? Why not? I think it's all in our perception too. What we see before us, do you see it in your mind's eye, or do you need to see it right before you? Do you have to be able to touch it and feel it and have it be tangible? So I think it's allowing yourself to stay open, to open that perception and allow things to be as they are. But we've been so conditioned to think that tangibility is only this one thing. And tangibility is not just this one thing. It's so much more. It's so much more. It's palatable. We can feel tangibility. We can touch it, no pun intended. But we can get a feeling of the essence of tangibility. It doesn't just have to be this one thing. It can go with all of our senses. It can go with every single one of our senses. And when we look at the feminine energy, it's an expansive energy. It has compassion. It allows things to be able to open up and express themselves. And we're really in a place where people are just so afraid of certain kinds of expansion, and policies and procedures have been put into place so that certain things cannot happen. Our desire to be curious is stunted at such a young age. As soon as they put the kids in preschool and they start teaching them that, okay, everything is outside of you and everything is this one thing, and then they start giving you tests on these certain things, and then you have to regurgitate everything that they have told you just to make sure that they're indoctrinating you the right way. And the divine feminine allows for compassion and understanding, and for even, mistakes to be made. But we look at mistakes and they're used as lessons. Well, then you're going to learn something. So really, is anything ever really a mistake when you take it and you're able to learn from it? That's to me a very important thing.
So this term, Navratri, means 9 nights in Sanskrit. The term's used to refer to the festival of goddess Durga and her 9 incarnations, marking the power of womanhood. Festival is widely celebrated across India, with devotees fasting, offering prayers to the goddess in temples, and dancing folk dances and others. And again, when we look to so much of all the traditions that we have, they really do start with extraterrestrial and interdimensional beings coming to Earth and teaching us. And so in the Golden Age, that is when we actually had the physical coming to Earth of, just to give you a for instance, Aset. And Aset, most would know as Isis. And so, was she a person? Yes, she was. Yes, she is. She's also part of a collective. So she operates on the 5th density as an individual, on the 6th density as part of an ascended collective. Humanity will ascend to a certain point. Where we will become a collective doesn't mean that you lose your identity. And I think, again, when we look to these beings, like when we look at Durga, she's a collective of different goddesses. Parvati's in there. Lakshmi's in there. Sarasvati's in there. And so, we could look at that as, love is in there. Abundance is in there. Wisdom is in there. There's, again, these universal archetypes that you could view them as prototypes. These are kind of like lenses that the light from source goes through on the way to manifesting as an individual soul in an incarnation. Just like when you look at a diamond, and each face is unique and each one is a different aspect of source. It's the same thing with these different archetypes, but yet there are individual beings, individual incarnations as well. So in the Golden Age, Set came here and taught humanity, as did these Hindu deities. When we look to the legends and myths, which again, all these are based on realities. There's just different depths to them. And we see the Sumerian city-states, and we see these beings residing in their temples and demanding worship. While again, those, what we might call Anunnaki or Nibiruan extraterrestrial interdimensional beings, those are really what we call asuras over in Hinduism. And those are the demons that were battled by many of these other benevolent beings. The main difference between the two groups is one came and taught humanity how the universe works, taught humanity how to do things to better their lives, taught humanity, which herbs will do what, which food is safe to eat, how to cultivate and grow food. The other group came in and just took over, instilled themselves as gods, and then left their prodigy to take over as kings, queens, presidents, members of the UN, members of the WEF, etc., and just basically lived off of the cream of the world, so to speak, while the rest of the world gets bugs. So these are very, very different beings. And yet when we talk about these beings, again, like with Durga, here you see the mother of the Hindu universe, there's also the archetypes to get into young. And I remember in high school and studying psychology, and I really gravitated towards Jung. I didn't like that Freud guy. He always struck me as a little bit of a strange guy with a little perversion going on. But Jung, I thought, was fascinating, and understanding archetypes. And there was something there that rang true. And there are archetypal forces.
Mm-hmm. There are, definitely. And, a lot of us can take understanding in that we come from certain archetypal instances as well. It's about the expansion of our consciousness and allowing ourselves that ability to spread out and feel things and sense things in a way that we've never been able to feel and sense them before. And this Durga energy, it's definitely going to come down here. It's not like when I do view her and look at her, I don't just see, I see an entity that comes with the vibration. It's not just like one person or one being come down. No, she emanates a vibration. Her energy is meant to spread out. It's meant to be given and passed on from one person to the next. So it's almost like a sharing of the energy. Expansive is a really good way for me to put it. It's not that it's just one person. This energy is going to unfold out to so many, just like a flower blooms, or it just is going to be. It simply is, just like a butterfly has beautiful wings. You don't have to tell it. It just has beautiful wings. This Durga energy is a very protective, very just force that comes through, and it really brings balance to so many things that have been twisted and torqued.
One thing that hit me so many decades ago was the story of Cain and Abel. And so, Cain, who ends up being cursed, brings as an offering fruit and veggies and things like that, all plants, and he's turned away. And Abel brings a lamb, a blood sacrifice, and that's accepted. And of course, the modern biblical point of view on this is the blood is representing the blood of Christ. That's going to be a sacrifice for all. And that's based on the parameters of original sin. And you need somebody to be a sacrifice. Why? Because God said so. Yeah, that's again the Anunnaki. That's again the Nibiruans. That's the controllers, the draconian way of things. When we look to Durga and Durga Puja, what's Puja? Puja is basically a service, so to speak. You could view it as a religious service, including offerings. And what's given? Well, fruit, vegetables, milk, honey, flowers, things like that, not blood. And to me, it was like, that is so obvious. It is so obvious. And my exploration of Hinduism came after reading a Christian book speaking of it as being all devils and demonic. And then I started to go deeper and started to realize, I vibe with these guys. I don't like the blood sacrifice. I don't believe in the blood sacrifice. And what we've gotten is that Yeshua was never crucified on a cross in the first place. And in fact, Nibiru is known as the planet of the crossing. Ha ha ha. Yeah, exactly. Again, why would we offer fruits and vegetables, milk and honey? Well, they have life force in them. And what happens when we offer them? Well, when we put that out there at the table, and Cindy and I do have an altar in our home, as is the tradition of people of not just the Hindu persuasion, but what we might call pagan and neo-pagan traditions. This is what everybody did in the old days. When we put this out there, these beings take the life force from the apples, strawberries, the lettuce, the flowers, the milk, the honey. They take the life force, they bless it, amplify it, and they send it back to us. And this is a form of magic. It really is a form of magic. And it does work. So what we offer comes back to us. Now, what the controllers do, obviously they have a penchant for blood. And we know the reality of that. And war is a blood sacrifice. So when they offer up these nonstop wars, they're offering up blood sacrifices to the same dark entities that we see, depicted in the Cain and Abel story, with, demanding a blood sacrifice. And then they take that energy for themselves, but they also do grant some wishes of the controllers. This is how the universe works. These densities are built on top of each other, so to speak. So when you put out your visualization of something, like, okay, I want to, it could be anything. It might be that you want to become a better basketball player, and you visualize yourself as Michael Jordan. Well, in my age, maybe in this age, I guess still LeBron James, or I'm not even sure who's playing nowadays. But you might visualize yourself as you're shooting as that person. And, it takes that clear-cut visualization. What you do, again, in many forms of magic, and again, this was another study of mine. I've studied all different forms of magic. And really it all boils down to the same principles of visualization. And then understanding how the universe works. So when we do give, and we show faith in that giving, that we know it's going to come back to us in some way, shape, or form. Maybe not exactly. Maybe you're not supposed to be the next LeBron James or Michael Jordan, but it'll come back in some way and manifest according to your own higher self's higher purpose for this life. But again, taking that life force energy, blessing it, and sending it back to us is something that these beings do on the higher densities. So for those that, it's almost, I don't know what the right word is. I was going to say hysterical. It's just so in our faces that obviously the beings that demand blood sacrifice, it's pretty obvious what type of beings they are. Mm-hmm. And then again, when we look to puja, it's basically, again, could be flowers, it could be fruit, could be vegetables. It's done as an offering. There is a tradition in many pagan traditions that you would set out a plate when you're having a big feast or a meal. You set out a plate for the ancestors, and it does benefit the ancestors. When our loved ones pass on and we send prayers out for our loved ones, it does benefit them. Even though they're not here with us physically, that energy through your intention helps them.
Mm-hmm. Yes, definitely send that energy and that intent out, because they can benefit from it. They can learn from it. They can heal from it. So all very, very good stuff. Hopefully you guys have gotten some golden nuggets of information, and I hope you carry it on and do great things.
Absolutely. So I'll have all these links for you. 108 names of the goddess Durga. Why 108? Why do you have mala beads with 108? Again, 1 + 8 = 9. That's, again, culmination, manifestation in so many ways. So If you find yourself more interested, come to our mantra list. There are many mantras there. This one is to Lakshmi. Again, Lakshmi is the goddess of abundance, love, and prosperity. We do have Kuan Yin, and she's all about compassion. Tara is a powerful force for peace. And then we have this one, which is a mantra for protection against dark forces. This invokes the divine feminine Chamunda mantra, very, very powerful one. And there's one here to Durga too. So, I'll again put all the links for you guys. And this is under the mantra playlist. So, as always, may you be blessed by the power of the true creator of this universe. Much love. Namaste.
Namaste.